Okay, we're back again here with Peace, Knowledge, and Wisdom, the YouTube channel that really delves into the Black experience in America and also here in the Ohio Valley. What we're going to do is take a look at some of the views in the Black community. We know that the Black community is not monolithic, so there's going to be varied views, and you'll get a chance to meet a lot of people from our local area and hear their viewpoints on how it was growing up in the Ohio Valley. Also, from different eyes, today we're going to have white eyes like we had before from Mr. Anthony Rita. Today we're going to have Miss Jacky Hines, who's going to talk about her experience in the Ohio Valley. But as always, first, we want all you guys, please hit that subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button so that you can be notified of any videos that we have. Hit that bell so that when they're uploaded, you get them immediately. When you hit the bell, the drop-down box will come. Hit the all. Then you want to hit the like button. And also share with all your friends so they can get all this information. Again, hit that subscribe button. Okay, we're about ready. As you see, Miss Hines, how you doing today?
I'm good, Michael. How are you?
I'm real good. I'm glad to have you. Honored to have you here.
Glad to be here.
I'm going to talk a little bit about your experience growing up in the south end of Steubenville. Is where I found out that you're from the south end. And I don't know if you've seen our interview with Anthony Rita. Tony Rita, he was coming from the north end and a little bit time period before you. I think the 50s and 60s he talked to us about. And so, man, it was very interesting hearing some of the things that he went through as a kid. And so I'm sure your childhood, which you may not think was much of anything different, but coming from a perspective where I sit and where we Black community sits, it's always good to see what we went through white eyes. But before we get started with that, let's just hear about your childhood, growing up in the south end of Steubenville.
Yeah, like you said, I lived in the south end, and I currently live in the south end of Steubenville. I'm a South Ender for life, I guess.
Good deal.
I grew up in the south end. My younger years were the 70s and 80s. I grew up in the South End projects, Earl Rogers Plaza, whatever you want to call it. I believe it to be a different place than it is now.
Right.
It was built, I believe we moved in 1973.
Okay.
My mom was probably one of the first people to move in there. There were a lot of single mothers with their families. And so there were a lot of children my age.
Right.
And
how old were you then, you said?
I was probably about 4.
Okay. Very young.
Yeah, I was very young when we moved in.
So it's kind of exciting for you, a new place, probably a lot of kids your age around.
It was exciting. There were a lot of kids my age. My grandparents lived a block. My grandparents lived on Railroad.
Okay, yeah.
My great-grandparents lived north of us on 5th Street by a block.
Yeah.
So I think location was also important because my family was close.
Okay.
So it was good that I could walk up over the railroad tracks as I got older to Railroad to see family there.
Right.
And later up to 5th Street to see when my grandparents moved into that house that I currently reside in. That was my great-grandfather's house.
Good deal.
So location was great in regards to being close to family and in regards to some local attractions, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that.
We will. Yeah, we'll go into what the South End was like back then.
Right.
Childhood, playing in the projects areas down there, and then schooling. Where'd you go to school?
I initially went to Grant.
Okay.
And then
K through?
I went kindergarten and 1st grade to Grant.
Okay.
And then I moved to St. Anthony's.
Okay.
That was our church, our parish, and so I went to St. Anthony's till the 8th grade, and then I advanced to Catholic Central.
Which was also on the South End.
Yes, on 7th Street.
Okay. And how far did you go to all the way up to middle school? To St. Anthony? That went up to what?
To 8th grade.
8th grade, yeah.
8th grade and then to Central.
Okay, yeah. Now how what was do you know, or did your mom or family ever let you know the reason for the switch at the 1st grade? I mean the 2nd grade instead of right away, or did Catholic school have kindergarten?
Catholic school did not have kindergarten.
Okay, just 1st grade.
At the time. They just had 1st grade. Okay. I'm not sure why I didn't move until 2nd grade. I don't
Could have been because you did go to kindergarten at Grant, so since they offered it, mom probably wanted to get you in there. And then once you got there, everything was going okay. Yeah. 1st grade.
And back then, I'll say this, back then, a lot of the churches, parishes, paid for a lot of kids to go to Central. Okay. The parishes were thriving. There were many Catholic churches in Steubenville at that time. Okay. Have since been consolidated or closed. Yes. And most of those churches paid for most of us to go to school.
That's good to know. And did they do that as a they paid for it in order just to get kids, or was it more of by need, or they paid for all kids?
My understanding was, I mean, we had a need. My mom was a single
Right.
mom, but I knew other families that the need was a little less, but they still received some sort of assistance from the church.
Okay.
So
I didn't know how that worked with the assistance. I know it's private education, so you have to
Right.
pay for private education, but I didn't know always if they had, like you said, assistance and if it was something regularly done. Okay, so St. Anthony, how'd you like St. Anthony?
I liked St. Anthony's. It was different than Grant because the normal things. You had to wear a uniform, and when I went to Grant, even in kindergarten in the first grade, I walked from the South End Projects to Grant School, which was
As
2
a
blocks
5-year-old,
away. As a
6-year-old.
5-year-old,
Isn't that amazing?
Right, right.
It's unbelievable that that just is unheard of now.
Right. I walked
And
from the
it's a
South
shame.
End, and it was probably 2 blocks, but still, I mean, most people wouldn't let a 5-year-old walk 2 blocks to school now.
But there was other 5-year-olds doing the same thing.
There were plenty of 5-year-olds doing the same thing.
Okay. Okay, so you go to St. Anthony. How was I know you from first grade all the way on. You was in Catholic school, but I guess let's say from the experiences that you hear of how Grant School was, because you still played with kids who went to Grant.
I did.
What was the biggest difference that you know of that might have been with your Catholic, or was there much of a difference?
The biggest difference for me was I went from being in a very diverse classroom at Grant School,
right,
to being now in a classroom at St. Anthony's with, I want to say 2 or 3
black kids
in my class.
Right,
so I went from a more diverse atmosphere to an atmosphere where it was limited.
How much do you remember your first grade?
I remember a good bit.
Remember your teacher?
I remember my teachers all the way through. I do.
You didn't have Miss Bryan, did you?
I did not. I had in kindergarten at Grant School, I had Mrs. Weisberger.
Miss Weisberger, I had her.
And in first grade.
No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
And
hold on a second. Miss Weisberger, she was down there.
Yeah.
But now I don't know if I don't know why I thought I had her, because I went to kindergarten at Washington.
Okay.
But then my first grade year I went to Grant. But maybe I just remember her.
Yeah, she was
okay. In the first grade, who'd you have?
I had Miss Balakis.
That's who I had. Yes.
Right there when you walked in, and she was right there, and she was tough, man.
Oh, I was just getting ready. I'm glad you said it because even it's so funny when you're a kid, things are just indelled in your mind. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted Miss Bryan. Miss Bryan was the nicest teacher, and I never had her, and she's one of my favorite teachers.
The only SWAT I ever got
was from Miss Balakis.
Miss Balakis.
So you had Miss Balakis. That might have chased you back. Then maybe that's what happened. You went home. Said,
I wasn't the only one. It was a.
So you went from the paddling on the butt to, if this isn't, I assume this is true, to the smacking with the rulers on the hands.
We did.
And that did happen.
Venture into that, yeah.
Now, did it happen the same way? Or was it more of was it used more often because it was considered such?
No, it wasn't used more often. I think I can only recall once or twice that.
So the same thing that went through, teacher threatened you, if you do this, you're going to get a SWAT, or the principal's going to come give you a SWAT. That type of threatening done, you're going to get the ruler?
No, I don't remember hearing it, but a lot of the nuns were old. I mean, they were old, so.
Yeah. And that's just what they did.
We were young, and we had a lot of energy.
So that was the corporal punishment in college, in Catholic schools, basically the ruler?
Probably.
There was no swatting.
Second, third grade, and then after that, there was none of that.
Because it kind of went out.
It went out, yeah.
Good, bad? Does it matter? You don't think it's a big deal?
No.
Corporal punishment in the schools?
No, I didn't think it was a bad thing. I mean,
and
I don't think we were
a needed thing?
Adversely affected by it.
Well, do you think it should have stayed?
That's difficult. That's
okay.
a difficult. That's a difficult question.
Okay, it's a little bit too politicky for.
Well, because I went into the teaching profession, so.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll talk about that a little more. Okay, from St. Anthony, which you thought was pretty good time, to Catholic Central, high school age. So you're becoming puberty setting in, and you've been through St. Anthony, so now you're going to high school. We all know what that means when you go from middle school to high school. You're getting grown, as they say. You're able to do a lot more, probably more dances or things like that, more social places you can go a little farther away. How was Central?
Different.
Okay.
I found that I felt out of place a lot of the times there.
Because?
I think because I was the girl that lived downtown, and I wasn't the only one.
Right.
I mean, there were a handful of us.
Yeah.
But I always felt a little different. I formed wonderful friendships there.
Right.
But there was just always an uneasy feeling or a feeling of not always being completely included.
Right. So let me ask you this: is there any examples you want to give of even how minor that allowed that to set in, or that you noticed just was consistent at your time there?
I didn't go to a lot of dances.
Okay.
I really didn't. I did some.
Because you didn't feel welcome? Because you didn't want to go through what you felt you might be going through at school? Was it subconsciously? Was it conscious?
I think it was probably me subconsciously holding myself back because I felt uneasy at times.
Okay. So, what kind of student were you at Catholic Central?
For the first 2 years, I was a good student.
Right.
I did well in school and I enjoyed it. At the end of my sophomore year, my dad passed away.
Okay.
He was 44, and that was awfully young.
Yep.
And if I was going to be honest, I'd say the last 2 years I coasted.
Yeah.
I had a difficult time and I coasted.
Yeah. That touches home to me. My dad died in my sophomore year, and the same thing happened. I was in honors. It was called honors back then, and he died in that year, my junior year. I remember after the first semester, when I went back to school the first semester, my grades dropped. And I don't really know why necessarily, but really it was mainly one grade. It was English. And I remember coming home, and I think my mom thinking that because my dad's gone, who was the enforcer, the disciplinarian, that maybe I was slacking off because he wasn't there. And I remember her making the statement to me: if you don't get them grades up, if you don't get your grades right, you're going to get out of the honor. You're going to get out of that honors. And I think what happened is it kind of backfired for me, or on her. I think she's thinking I was going to force me to do better. Well, it made me realize that's less pressure on, because it was, scholars program was kind of hard. So I took that to heart. And when things didn't get better in English, which was always, I didn't write well. The next year I got out. I got coasted through, took English 101, all the classes. I mean, I was already ahead of all that. I
dropped out of the advanced classes.
And then exactly, people cheated off me in class and things like that. So I was like, oh, this is great, But like you said, I started out for 2 years, father passed, and then I ended up coasting. So I kind of understand what you mean. Yeah. But did that end up hurting you think?
Yeah, it affected a lot of choices that I made, from there on out. And while I am very content with my life and my career path now, there was something else that I wanted to do, and that I never. It stopped all of that. Okay. And I never picked it back up.
And that's a common thing too. I think with a lot of us, there's things that we would have done. So after high school, now you're becoming a woman. What is the avenue you decided to take? What's some of the choices you did to the point where you get from your college time period, or your time right after high school, your 20s?
Much to my mother's chagrin, I took a year off.
Okay.
And I think because I was still mourning. I was mourning my dad. I mourned him for a long time.
Okay.
And so I took that year off, which was not really a good thing.
Right.
I never encourage it when I hear kids say it, because it really slows your progress down, and it changes your mindset, and it's hard to pick that back up. The bag feels heavy when you're picking it back up.
Oh, yeah.
And so my schooling was stretched out over a longer period of time, finishing all the way up in my adulthood.
What were you going for?
Remember now, I wanted to be one thing, and then I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
When I
like
let go of that one thing, I really didn't know. So then eventually, I thought I want to teach, and I want to influence children.
Okay.
I did have some good teachers that were pretty fabulous.
Okay.
And in the way that they approached you as a person, and so that was important to me. And so what I did was I just advanced my schooling, and eventually went on to Head Start.
Oh, okay.
To teach at Head Start.
And so that was your path. Where was your first assignment?
I spent a lot of time at Wells.
Oh, okay.
I spent a lot of time at Wells Head Start for.
Now, what years would that have been?
Wow, that was 94.
Okay.
94. I started out at Wells. Then I went down to Tiltonsville because Head Start covered the entire county.
Yes.
And at the time, it was a comprehensive program, so there were sites in Steubenville, Tiltonsville, Adena, Amsterdam, New Alex.
Okay.
Wintersville. They were everywhere. They were all over.
So you traveled basically.
I went down to Tiltonsville, and then I came back, and I later on, I went out to Wintersville for a while, and then right back into Steubenville.
Good deal. So you end up becoming a teacher, preschool. You have any kids?
Mm-hmm.
How many kids?
I had one son, and I went into a relationship with who would eventually become my husband, Bob Hines. And he had a son. Okay. And so we each brought a child into blended the relationship. Family? Yeah, blended family. Okay. And then how old are your kids now? Now they are 30 and 28.
30 and 28.
They are.
Okay. Friends. You consider yourself, you have a lot of friends, a few friends, a lot of best friends, no best friends, you have acquaintances. How would you interpret your friendships?
I have some social circles.
Okay.
I guess I'd say.
That's a good
I have some really good friends.
Right.
That's a very small, tight-knit circle.
Okay.
You're familiar. Your wife is in that circle. So
strange circle.
It's a fantastic circle. So that circle is a wonderful and uplifting circle of women. I also have a group of girls that I went to high school with.
Okay.
And we started a while back getting together probably like once a month or so. And so we still get together and have dinners and do things together. And that's great. It's changed over the years. We've changed, but we haven't.
Right.
So that's good. And then there's another, then I have some acquaintances or other people that I consider that to be still good friends, but they don't necessarily fit in any of those.
Right. And then you have your work
circles.
Friends. Yeah. We always got categories. We always have categories for things. Okay, that's good to hear. So basically you had, to some extent, uneventful. You didn't go to a lot of things, but you had basically what you would call a normal upbringing and now a normal life as you live here in the Ohio Valley. Mm-hmm. So what I want to do is, for our purpose of this show and why you're here when this is about the Black experience, is that if those who do not know, the South End was a predominantly Black area, especially the projects.
Yes.
Was a predominantly Black area. In that area, you even talked about railroad, and as you got older, that also was a predominantly Black area. And I lived a little further up on Hill Avenue, is where I grew up.
Right.
And so all that South End area was, as I'm sure you remember, Baptist. Timmy Johnson, right? Yes. He'd always call it South Bronx. That's what he called South End. But so what I want to talk about now is I want to go back to your childhood up through middle school. Okay. You described it as pretty good, nice, had friends. How was it being one of the few white girls, white little kids in the projects?
I don't think it dawned on me right away.
Yeah.
The South End, like you said, was predominantly Black and Italian. So I was the other side of that spectrum. So that's basically who you had around you most of the time.
Right.
I don't think I realized when I was very young, these were just my friends. These were the people I grew up with.
Right.
And the people that I grew up with, I think we formed a great bond because so many of them, I still talk to them. We talk, we relate to each other. If they come into town, we see each other. If they don't live here. I grew up with the Minifields. I grew up with, I could run off a whole list of names, that lived, Eric Harris was across the street. Jerome and Jeff Jones were across the street. Rab and Andy and Pink were down the street, and Todd Minifield.
Now, were you on the same side of the street as Rab and Andy and him?
No, I was across the street.
So you were across the street?
I was directly across from Michelle Minifield's house.
Okay. Troy Smith?
Yes, I was across from all of them.
Lloyd Williams, the Hugels, and all of them. You were, I know exactly where you were. Okay, and then behind you was the McGee's, I think.
The McGee's were behind me. Yes. The Lindsays were
Tor
behind
Hill.
me for a while, Tor Hill. And then Timmy and Jody Pierce would make an appearance periodically.
Marlon Moore.
Marlon.
The Stensons.
Yeah, so, and those are all people that I still, the Wises were down that way.
Yeah.
So those were all people that then and still, I still have a solid connection with a lot of those people. Those to me are my family more than they're my friends.
So let me ask you this. Looking back now, you said you just felt like this was friends, family, you felt at home. What about, so I'm sure you had to have some instances where you got in a fight with one of them or an argument and you were the white girl.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I sure was.
And, or well, just for our audience's sake, and don't know who's watching, but you were at some point the H word and they might have been sometime the N word, whether you said it or not, or whether they said it or not, meaning that that type of thing that was built up in the rest of Steubenville.
Right.
Even though you're in your cocoon, it had to filter in.
Yeah.
Give me what's your thoughts on that? Did that ever stop you from feeling the way you did about everybody else, no matter who you got in say in a disagreement with? And then on the other side, did you feel that did anything like that make you notice, wait a minute, I'm not just like them? Did you ever have that moment where, oh, I am different?
I think as you get older, you notice more.
Right.
When you're young and you're playing and everybody's a kid and it doesn't, my mom was there, the other moms were there. You ate at whoever's house you ate, lunch at, whoever.
Especially the projects. Whoever was had the snack.
I mean, and I think I used the word idyllic with you. Like I had an idyllic childhood to me.
Okay.
I mean, the projects were, they don't look like they look now. Yeah. It didn't look like that back then.
Right. So there's nothing that really sticks out to you.
No, I mean, we had disagreements, but to me, the disagreements were more girls. Girls were always bickering.
Okay.
Still
to this
day, girls were always bickering. There was more bickering. I don't remember until I got way older.
Yeah.
I don't remember anyone using the N-word.
Right.
I don't remember in that community.
Right.
I don't remember hearing it, and I don't remember feeling left out in that community.
Right.
Miss Ruby, Lindsay, had cooking classes.
Oh, okay.
So
for the girls?
For the girls.
Okay.
And we'd all go over there and my little white butt would hop right over there with everybody else. And, and we'd have cooking classes. So I never felt left out in that community as much as I felt left out as I got older.
Yes.
And I went on to high school and felt more the outsider in that community.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this then. Do you think that your feeling of then have a feeling of being left out? Did you think you had anything to do? Did you think you had equal blame, if there is such a thing, that there's a blame on it? What I mean is now you've been to St. Anthony for all that time, now into Central. You're starting to experience, let me say, for lack of a better term, white life.
Yeah, I didn't know.
You grew up in black life.
I didn't know how to experience white life.
Okay, but even though you didn't know how to experience it, you were experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, for instance, you may have, I don't know for you, for sure, but you would have went to the mall probably more being a girl from Central than still living in the projects down there, going to Big Red.
Those girls weren't walking around the mall.
Exactly. Right. Maybe catching rides with a girlfriend there, meaning you're experiencing this thing that you might not consciously understand what you're experiencing.
Right.
But you're not going to go and down to just hang out at Hoppy's anymore. You want to hang out up at the pizza shop or the mall or, somebody's house who they've got a big house, 2-story home, 4 bedrooms, and they chill out on it.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I had a good friend in high school, and, they lived in houses that, I didn't have anybody to my house.
Right.
Nobody was coming, and that was the stark reality. Nobody's coming to the projects to spend the night at Jacky's house, other than the people that already lived in the south end of town.
So that's what I mean. And that's something that could be, that you understood why you were doing that.
Yes.
But subconsciously, what that could have also been is, I don't want them to know I'm friends with Jackie. I don't want them to know I'm friends with Michelle. I don't want them to know I'm friends with Foley. I don't want them to know I'm friends with Baptist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Meaning you're friends with them, they're like family, but now you're in a different circle. And first of all, you don't bring them to your home, but then you also, it's no different than if you have a family from a certain area and you go high on the hog, so to speak.
Right.
When are you going to let that person know where you really came from?
Yeah.
The reason I say that, and what I was trying to get at, and why I want our audience to as we unpack views and know where people come from and why they are the way they are, is that one of the things I notice, at least I notice in the black community, is that there's very seldom ever a problem with white people assimilating within our culture. If they want to be in, they are open arms normally. But it's not reciprocated the other way.
It is not.
Normally, when you hear somebody black going to, which you could probably say, there was probably some black kids that came to Central or St. Anthony that wasn't necessarily treated as good as you were at Grant when you were younger.
Right, I'd agree.
And I wonder what that is. If that's something that's, I know what it is, but I wonder why it prevalates so much.
I attribute things like that to two things: fear and lack of knowledge.
Okay.
I mean, I think that people are fearful of what they don't know, and just lack of knowledge about other people and cultures. And at the end of the day, a family is a family. You know, people love their families, and they're going to take care of their families. And but we tend to, once we add race into the issue, we forget that those are still mothers and those are still fathers, and it takes away from just the natural feeling of what a family is. And you're looking at that family over there, but some people look over there, I see a family, but some people would look over there and see a black family or a white family. And once you start drawing those lines, you start making assumptions.
Exactly.
And you start carrying things with you that you maybe don't even know about. And that's been my experience.
Yes.
And that came from working at a Head Start program with mostly
black kids.
Not all.
Right.
And definitely a good bit of those children were from a very low socioeconomic background. But you start to learn that people make assumptions about families like that. And back then, some assumptions about single parents.
So let me ask you this. I know your husband. You married him once? Okay, so I know Bob, but he's a black guy. Is that one of those, how do you think that choice came as it relates to race? Do you think was that something you consciously was seeking to find a black man? Were you consciously thinking, I definitely don't want to have, what was your makeup as it relates to dating? Were you just open-ended, meaning, hey, best person, you know what I mean? I'm looking for just a good guy type of thing?
I, not by choice, I don't think, but I didn't really date any black men. Right. Until I dated Bob.
Okay. So he was the first guy you dated black. So while you were in high school,
I'm trying to think about maybe people that were friends that I was close to that I did things with, but not necessarily in a full dating relationship. Right. So Bob was the first black man that I actually met at work and dated, and just consequently ended up marrying him. I don't think I ever sought out one or the other in particular. Right.
Now, do you think that you're growing up in a black neighborhood? Maybe when you did finally meet him and decided to date, there was no apprehension from color?
I believe that. Okay. Yeah, I believe that. I mean, I think we hit it off, and there was a lot of commonality in our thoughts.
Okay. Where did he grow up?
Bob grew up on North 8th.
North 8th Street.
Yeah.
Okay. But he was familiar with the South End.
He was familiar, and oddly enough, he was friends with someone that lived directly across the street from me, and I'd never met him until I worked with him. And we never figured out how we never knew each other because we had so many friends that were intertwined.
Okay. Yeah, and
it's funny.
And I think what's amazing, I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she has a friend that a girl that she met in college, and she's still friends with, and she went over to China for a while because she learned Chinese. That's what's her major, and she's very open with cultures. She has no problem with cultures, and she's a white girl. And something came up in their conversation that kind of put my daughter's antennas up, and we talked about it, and it's amazing. The reason I'm asking you these, the reason it's important when you have somebody white who's grown up. Well, you said familiarity. Ignorance and experiences and fear. You have a lot less fear, I presume, of the black culture, the black community, black people, than the average person that you may have went to Central with.
Definitely.
And so, opposite to that, she had her antennas up. As black people, our antennas are always up as it relates, to those things. And so, with you having that knowledge as you became a woman, you had a family, your husband. I know I met you, I probably met you before that, but when I remember meeting you and Bob together is when you guys joined the NAACP. And I know you were active, I know you're an advocate, I know one of the things I respect about you is you have strong opinions, and most of the time they align up with my opinions, so to speak. And I just say most of the time, not all the time, obviously. Right. But so I want to try to switch a little bit, and let's talk some politics, let's talk some more stuff that's a little bit deeper. As it relates to your relationship, you said you have a circle. And I know that one circle you have there, you know, that there's black and white women in that circle.
Right.
How does race play in your friendships?
I don't know. I seek out a spirit in people.
Okay.
And I seek out people that are accepting,
Right.
kind, that have a spirit about them of probably a spirit of inclusion, because I have that same spirit. Like,
Right.
I don't look at people for, and it seems so weird to say, like, I don't look at the color of people's skin. Obviously, you see it, you acknowledge it,
Exactly.
you know,
and then you move on.
And it is, and people's heritage is important to them,
Right.
Whether they're
Right.
black or whether they're Italian or whatever they are,
Right.
you know, it should be acknowledged. People should be acknowledged for what has molded them into the people that they
Yes.
are. So I look for friendships with people that just are, that have a spirit of inclusion.
Okay.
You know, that love people.
Right.
And those are the people that I try to surround myself
So you
with.
you judge people on the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
I
so to
certainly
speak.
do.
Okay, and again, I think that I love when those things come up, because you say that so matter of factly, which is part of the reason why you're sitting here than maybe somebody else. I have a lot of white friends that couldn't have this type of a conversation with me for various reasons.
Right.
They're apprehensive of the question that might come, and you aren't apprehensive about it because you've already been in the community. You understand. So let me ask you this: how much of the black plight that we might describe it, you know, all you know about the disparities, whether it comes to education, healthcare, jobs, the injustice system as they call it, all those things. How do you feel that you have does that get your opinions on that? How often does that get you in trouble?
My opinions that
Yeah.
get me in trouble.
Well, and what I mean is, I have a feeling that there's times that you understand the plight differently than other white people.
I do.
Therefore, you may see something that they're not willing to see or care to see, and so your opinion on it, you know.
I raised two boys.
Okay.
One was white.
Right.
And one was not.
Yes.
So I found that being a parent
Yeah.
of those two boys, I parented them, and Bob and I parented them differently.
Yeah.
They were accepted differently in the community. My white son would be afforded a lot more privilege than my biracial son, who, when you have to sit your child down and tell him, for all intents and purposes, you're a black man in this world, and you have to maneuver in such a way, because that's what people see when they see you. So raising my boys was very different, because I had to equip one of them
differently
with a different set of a different kind of knowledge about the world, because the world was going to be easier for my white child as opposed to my biracial stepson. The world
a lot of that was unsaid, though.
No, we talked actively about it in my household. We talked actively with the boys together, collectively.
Yeah. What's their age differences?
Like 2.5, but not really. It's like 2 years.
Okay.
Just depending on.
So they were close enough.
They were, in high school briefly for the same. For the same.
Did they go to the same high school?
They both went to Big Red.
So they both went to Big Red.
But very different. They were very different boys and had very different interests.
Right.
But they were both there, so the experiences were there for them, and I would, when they were in high school, you would see. Yeah. I mean, we went through high school with one, and then he graduated. His senior year, the other one was a freshman. So then the other one comes through, and it was a little different. Experiences with teachers were different. Yeah. Maybe the teachers that didn't know, that this was the same family.
How, at times, was there times when it affected you deeper than others? Meaning, let's say this. Let's say you come from divorced parents, and people say, I grew up, my parents were divorced. But there's sometimes that hurts a little more, maybe during holidays, maybe during different things, or parent-teacher day that you can only go with one. Was there times that was a little more deeper than others? Maybe you were trying to explain something to one son, or something actually happened, or you just looking at having to do that? I mean,
I don't know if we were just very proactive as a family, and we would broach conversations before an incident would occur, so that we wanted to put prepared men into the world. And I talk to people still
Yeah.
about raising your children for the world.
Right.
You don't raise your children for you. You have to raise them for that world out there that they're going to.
True.
And so Bob and I were very proactive about raising our children for the world. So I think both of our boys got a broad view of what the world was like,
Right.
what was going to be expected of them in the world, and what people would see when they saw them, and how that may help them or hinder them.
So let me ask you this: were you the white voice in the house? I mean, did you feel that you had to be ambassador to white people as it relates? Like, were you supposed to? You know how that works when they talk about white people say, "Oh, I got a black friend." Is that black friend has the responsibility for you to mean you understand all black people? Were you supposed to be the voice for all white people?
It was hard.
Because they weren't all like you, right?
And it wasn't my community.
Yeah.
It wasn't my complete community.
You didn't grow up there.
No, I didn't. So it was difficult. But
it would be like you trying to be the representative of Italy.
Right.
Because you're Italian here in America.
Yeah.
Like, it's really not the same. I mean, I'm from them people, but I'm really not from them. More, like these people. So you said it was hard, but that's what it was like. And so your son also was the white representative, your son, and then
he wasn't.
And then your stepson was the black representative.
Yeah.
Bob was Bob the one to bring blackness into the family?
Yeah, he was.
Is that right?
Like authentic.
Okay.
He was.
So let me ask you this:
he wasn't just some white girl that grew up down there.
Let me ask you this. Bob's son, Rob, right? Mm-hmm. Robert, is he biracial?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me ask you. This is going to be a controversial. You can answer however you want to answer it. You and Bob didn't have children together.
We did not.
If you would had, how would your child have been raised? Black or white, or biracial? And why?
Wow.
Probably never thought about it.
I didn't. I would probably. I think that knowledge is power. So I think that we would have probably raised a child as we did Jacob. Mm-hmm. Jacob is the older of the two, and so when Bob and I first got together, he was just turning 5.
Okay.
So Jacob, I think the way we raised him was probably indicative of how we would have done that.
Right.
And we raised him with a healthy amount of appreciation for all sides of his community.
Okay.
And
what do you mean his community?
His community was white and black because
of Bob.
Because of Bob.
So what you're saying is then now to me, and you don't know what I mean when I'm talking, but I'm going to explain that to you. Yeah. When you say that, to me, that means you're raising him biracial.
Yeah, and I think we probably did.
Okay,
and you think that's probably family.
And you think that's how you would have raised your child?
Yes.
And do you think that's the correct way? Obviously, you said you didn't think about it, but we're doing some thinking here.
I think it is because I think that I can see the result of what we've done.
Okay.
I can see the 30-year-old result of what we've done, who we've raised a child that's white, that has a sense of community with a lot more people than just white people.
Right.
And he's an advocate. Yeah. He's very much like me.
Right.
And I think I probably poured that into him in the way that we raised him. I think, he's an advocate for a lot of people, and that's guided his life, so. Very
tough question. I always wonder because, the if you have biracial children in the black community, they're black.
Yes. In the world, they're black. I think they are.
And that is because of slavery and what the government of America said. One drop of black blood makes you black. Therefore, once that's already happened, we have assimilated to that and said, "Hey, yeah, you're one of us." Mm-hmm. But I, you can't be smart, intellectual, logic. You can't be a thinker and not understand that child has two cultures.
Right.
And that child should be able to see them 50-50.
Right.
But in the black community, in my experiences and in my thoughts, if that child treats both cultures equally, that child is being white.
I understand what you're saying.
Because we black people see a biracial child as 100% black until they decide not to be 100% black.
I understand that. That. And I think, I mean,
and I'm not saying that's right.
No matter how we raised Jacob,
right,
he's clearly been afforded a privilege in his life being, he's white. I mean, and that will open more doors
exactly
than
now
his black counterparts.
So here's the test. How was Rob raised?
The same, but he's not an advocate. Their personalities are very different. He's more of a laid back and
when you say he's not an advocate, you mean he's not a rebel rouser. You mean he's not? He's not. But if you would look at him, even though we raised him with a healthy dose of everything, he is more embedded in the black community. I mean, and if you look at him, you'd say that's a young black man right there. But there wasn't no discussions. You know what I mean? And again, it doesn't have to be, but what I'm trying to do is create this logical understanding of what can happen in a household that I've never been a part of, that I look at from the outside looking in, that you've had a part of, but not the specific one. For instance, Barack Obama. To me, Barack Obama was accepted by the black community because of Michelle. If he had had a white wife,
I think it'd be very different.
It would be a lot different from the black community because there would be a question about his loyalty.
Yes,
there would be a question. That. There should not be necessarily. Your actions should speak.
Right.
But so the reason I'm saying that is that I'm sure that in your house you didn't have white history sessions with Robert for him to know his white culture.
Right.
Now, part of that is because he can just walk every day and experience it.
It's everywhere.
He can go to school and learn that. Now, and that's the dynamic that I wish we would try to put problems in. Why is that so fair?
It's not. It's just accepted, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Why is that fair for Robert to be able to know his white history by not even asking for it?
Right.
Whereas black children, to get their black history, they have to ask for it. They have to seek. They have to find people who will permit them or accept them wanting to know their black, their blackness and their black history. So, thank you for indulging me with them type of questions because, like I said, they are sensitive questions. But I think they need to be asked for a couple reasons. We need to learn. We need to understand people's their reasonings. You grew up somewhere that formulated a lot of things of who you are. So let's stay here. I met you in NAACP.
Yeah.
Why did you guys want to join the NAACP? Why did this white woman who could have just assumed her white privilege wherever she needed to assume it, want to get involved in the NAACP?
My white privilege, wherever I want to assume it, makes me uncomfortable.
Okay.
I don't think it's right.
Right.
And I had to find a way to be able to lift people up to the level that I am automatically afforded.
Yeah.
The NAACP here, you guys were very welcoming.
Right.
Didn't look at me like, like. But
that was only because you had balls.
Maybe. I'll take it though. I'll take it. Whatever it was, I'll take it.
I'm just saying. Because I don't know if you remember. I think when you came, but he could have been gone. Our secretary was white, Mr. Coolstead. I don't know if you remember him.
I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead.
It might have been
But yeah, we were accepting, but you had wanted to get in. So there's nothing specific. Was it just you saying, "Hey, I want to be, busy in my community, do things right," and the NAACP is
I've always been busy in the community, and I think I was busy before and after.
Right.
I think at that time there was a lot of discussions about jobs.
Okay.
Jobs not going
to
black workers.
Were you worried about your son at all?
Not then.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily
okay.
Then.
Or your husband?
No, I mean
he was in
the same job that he had been in for a lot of years.
Okay. Well, that's the credit to you guys that you just want to be active in the community and you wanted to be active as it relates to civil rights.
Right.
Because it's obviously a worthy and needed cause as we've just talked about. Let me go another direction real quick. That's kind of sensitive. You're a white woman who has a black stepchild, a black husband that you're divorced from, grew up in the black community. There's a great book, and I've only read 3 chapters of it. It's called Angry Black Girl, and my daughter has it, and I read it. And it's written like in essays.
Okay.
And this one essay, she said, it's called "Cancel the Cookout." So I'm sure you know where I'm going. Do you think you should be invited to the cookout? Now, let's explain this for those who might not know what we're talking about. In this essay, the word cookout basically means a past within the black community that you should or should not have. And I think the essay did a great job of basically raising the bar on who gets invited to the cookout. Okay. And her assertion is that the black community has lowered the bar so much. So you can take it, you can say wherever you want to say, and I'm going to combat you no matter what you say. So you just, okay. And that's because that's what this is about. That's what it's about. We need to have a different opinion. We can't agree with everything. Yeah. And I may not agree with it. I'm just going to go where I'm saying ahead of time. I don't necessarily have an opinion right away. But where do you think you are in being invited to the cookout? And let's do it this way. Should you be invited to, there's 100 cookouts. How many cookouts should you be, the black cookout should you be invited to?
Wow. 50. I'm going to say 50. I'm going to say middle of the road, and I'm going to say, but it's sensitive, and I would be fine with not being invited to 50.
Right.
Because I can appreciate that I don't, no matter where I grew up, and no matter how much I'm familiar with the black community, it is still not entirely my experience.
Right.
Those times were different.
Right.
People are more outward and vocal now with their prejudices and their bigotry, and it was a lot of it was behind closed doors then. Yes. So just because I grew up in a black community does not mean that I should automatically be invited to that cookout. I feel like I have value.
Right.
I feel like I've maintained an existence in the community, so I do have a level of understanding from the 70s up to now.
Yeah.
Some people just pop into the community.
Yeah.
And want invited to all the cookouts.
Oh,
I'm probably not an advocate for those people.
Yeah. I don't know. And again, like I said, this essay was more about where do we, I asked you that way just because we're here, and I asked you. That's a question really for someone black.
Yeah,
that's why that is, because her assertion was we let anybody into the black cookout. All they have to do is sing a rap song, and the next thing you know, and one of the people she was talking about was Iggy Azalea. Like, she goes right to the top of the rap charts just because she's singing, now she's all, it could be a lot of different things like that. But a white mayor shows up at a black church. Oh, he's down. He'll never do any. All his decisions will be. Yeah, exactly. And again, we get duped. We don't take it seriously. We don't understand it. There's a lot of different reasons why that happens. But what I wanted to say is that what's funny about it is that when you said 50%, I thought that was, you said hesitantly, you thinking it could have been less than that.
Yeah.
So you think you're taking a privilege even to get to 50.
Even to get to 50.
And this is what I can say is generally, I think that was a good place to be because you grew up in the black community. I'm thinking that's 30 cookouts, you know what I mean? Because 30 people, because if the Minifields invited you, you think you're supposed to be there.
Right.
But if the McIntyres invite you, who you've never known, if they don't invite you, you just think, well, they don't really know me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So you have a circle. You can be invited to any cookout in the projects, you're thinking.
Yeah.
But if the project's in the North End projects and you're the only one coming, you may not get an invite. And if you go, you may not be that uncomfortable, but you're still not around family, so to speak, So the next thing is you married a black man. Mm-hmm. So now that's about 5 cookouts. Yeah. Maybe 10.
Should it open the doors, though? I don't know that it should.
Well, because I think the reason the door needs to be open is you said the word advocate. The girl used an essay ally. Okay. The point is how many allies do you have? And me and my daughter was talking about it, and I was telling her that there's a difference between certain allies. There's people who just understand that you have a problem, but they're not going to do anything, they're not going to really help anything. They just understand. They're just not putting their foot on your throat, but they're watching everybody else put their foot on your throat. Right. But anyway, I went all the way up to, I don't know if you ever seen that movie, Mississippi Burning. Mm-hmm. Gene Hackman played the FBI agent that came from Washington down to investigate that place. And when he got down there, the Ku Klux Klan and all the people down there, the racist citizens down there, was trying to kick him out, said, don't come down here causing no trouble. Right. And they threatened to kill him and start doing things to him. But he stayed and he fought. Right. Like, my point is, he can come to the cookout because he has earned the fact that he's willing to risk his life for justice for me or for mine. And those are the things that happen. Another controversial we'll touch on, because you have information on it, and not information, you have a theory. I mentioned that you were married to a black man. Mm-hmm. One of the things that comes to me that irritates me the most is when you find that white woman that married a black man, and it could be vice versa. It could be a black woman married a white man and a white man. They assume they have a certain amount of privilege. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even go to the N-word. I mean, that's just way over there. Oh. But they have a privilege that they feel that they're automatically can speak on black issues.
Yes.
But then, all of a sudden, they're a pro-Trumper. Like, again, that's such a to me, it's almost like, I knew that's what you were kind of thing.
Yeah.
Speak on anything like that. What do you think about that? Where am I at in my thought?
probably hold a healthy, unpopular opinion in a lot of this. And I think I just said that. Like, I don't think because I married a black man that should not afford me any invitations to a cookout, as far as I'm concerned, because I've married a man, but who am I?
Right.
You know, I want to come to the cookout because there's value in me and what I bring to the community. That's why I want to come, not just because I married Bob Hines, and well, Jacky's coming too because Bob's coming. You know, so, but I know we live in a community full of relationships that are, you know, black men and white women, or you know, white men and black women, but mostly black men and white women. And I think a lot of those women think, act, believe that that's their automatic pass to 100% of the cookout.
Or they did a favor to the community or something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
so that's my unpopular opinion.
And it's interesting. I think, you know, it's one of those things in the black community we struggle with, and that you don't always hear the other side, so to speak, articulate their thoughts or feelings about it. But it does create. In Steubenville, I've heard people call it the black and white club. You know, there's guys that are married to white women, or they have white girlfriends. And what I always have thought about it when I asked you that about the cookout, and again, this essay was just so spot on. Again, it's called Angry Black Girl. But what I then start to think of, how does it, because usually that stuff don't affect me. Like, if it don't affect me, I don't really have a thought on it. Who am I to talk about you and Bob and what Bob chooses? If you're nice and Bob's nice, like when you guys came in, you guys wanted to be in the NAACP. Hey, yeah, let's work. Right. And like I said, I've followed you, you know, knowing you're friends with my wife, and I've talked to you, I've seen you on Facebook, you say your opinions. So there's a like-minded ideology there. So that's a friend, that's what you can base a friendship on also. Right. But you know, it's always something that you want to unpack, and I always use it. This is one of my mottos. You know, if you have an interracial couple, there should at least be 50-50 on either your friends or the places you go. Not because that's what it has to be, according to me. It just allows me to know a little bit about what you're doing. Right. You know? I always thought that, you know, if usually what would happen if you have an interracial couple, that if it's a black man, white woman, it could be both. But usually you're okay if the black man meets that white woman amongst black people. Meaning she's got black friends, which is how you've seen her. Right. If you meet her at an event that you're going out and it's all white folks, then you marry someone or get hooked up with them. And every time you go out, it's always the white event. You start to lose your culture to the point where she's not really that concerned about your culture. So now if you have kids,
I agree.
You know, now you got a situation that needs to be, you know, looked at. And to me, it's one of those things that can trickle down into politics. I'm going to be watching this. A buddy of mine wanted me to make sure I watch this documentary on PBS about Clarence Thomas. And one of the things he asked me to watch it was, he said, you're going to be surprised Now, I think he already knows how I feel about Clarence Thomas. So I'm just thinking, I just can't imagine what he could be saying in his documentary to surprise me. Because a lot of times it's not about where you, like you said, it's not about where I grew up at. It's not about who is on my arm. It's about I have something to offer. Or I don't have anything to offer. Matter of fact, I really don't like, I'm just coming to steal some of that good fried chicken you guys make. Like, that's what I want. Like, I'm really not interested in your culture, in the problems. Like, all those kind of things. And so my thing is that what you do is more important. So even though you grew up in South End projects, even though you married Bob Hines, if you had a king and signed up for the NAACP, I probably would thought the same thing. You're somebody who you don't have to do this. You're doing it because you want to do this. You want to fight this fight that I have with me. Right. And so that's kind of like a basis. So my point is about Clarence Thomas. Maybe I will be surprised. Maybe I will understand. But when you get at the highest level there is in the land, whether as it relates to judicial and saying what's fair and not fair, and you decide to consistently vote against people who you already know are oppressed, and if you don't know it, it speaks to your intelligence or the fog, the veil over your eyes, then I don't know how I could ever see you differently, other than either you're just senile, you're not as smart as people think you are, or you just outright don't care about nothing, You're
where you need to be at this point.
Well, yeah.
So, doesn't matter where everybody else is at.
Okay, let's go with COVID. Let's talk about COVID real quick.
Yeah.
And I won't take up too much more of your time, but I enjoy talking with you. And I think the people like some of the topics we're talking about. COVID-19, where do you stand? And had you stood the same way on day in March as you do now?
Boy, I hold a lot of unpopular opinions.
That's fine. Well, hey, not necessarily.
I think it's serious.
Okay.
I think the steps that we took in the beginning are important, as far as, especially in Ohio. Yes. I'm not afraid to say that Governor DeWine's not my favorite person. Okay. And I've been very happy with what he's done or attempted to do. I think he deferred to science, which is smart. And I think in the early days, he helped us. I think our national leadership has not helped us. We went into these shutdowns hoping that there was going to be a plan put in place. And here we are rolling into June, and there's no real plan from our national government. So now my question starts to be...
Let me just say this, interrupt you, because I think you're wrong. We did have a plan. The plan was in April, when the weather warms up, we won't have to worry about it. The plan was, this is really a hoax. Yeah. The plan was that I'm going to do everything better than anybody's ever done. Right. The plan is all of those things. We did have a national plan. It's just the national plan was wrong. It wasn't true. It was it was just buffoonery at its best, or ignorance at its best. And the reason why it should be said that is so that even for whoever that person is that does all that, if they're still in charge, there's a way to get back out of that. You should simply say, man, all that buffoonery I did, I just didn't know any better. I didn't know what we was dealing with. I didn't realize it was this. I didn't realize it was, but this is what we're going to do now that I know this.
That takes a lot of pride, though.
Yeah. It doesn't take pride. It just takes humility.
Humility, too.
It takes some humility. But anyway, go on. So you said that you thought that nationally it wasn't necessarily taken care of well. You thought DeWine took care of it well. You think it's serious. Now, keep coming to where we're at.
Now I say to a lot of people, this is a virus and it's in the world. So what now? We're walking around with masks on, and we're, we're keeping things shut down. We're keeping children out of school, which I feel very strongly about. But what now? Because we've not taken any strides nationally to have a bigger plan.
So President Jacky Hines, Governor Jacky Hines, Mayor Jacky Hines, it's now you. What would you do?
I feel that mayors and governors are at a disadvantage because I think they were left to make whatever decision they were going to make.
And what decision should they make? What would you make?
What decision would I make now?
Yeah, right now.
It's difficult. I think we have to slowly, as we're trying to do, open things up. We have to see, unfortunately, where that takes us to understand the gravity of this situation, to understand how this virus is traveling, if it's still traveling at the rate that it's traveling, Are we smarter? Are we educating people about proper health hygiene?
Right.
Are we doing the things that we need to do? Because I asked somebody, like, when do we stop wearing a mask then?
I agree.
When is that time? When is it going to be a good time? This virus isn't going away. It's always going to be in the world now.
Let me say this. We're all adults here at the table, so it's no big deal. To me, like you said, what do we do? When are we going to stop wearing masks? Was there ever a time in the AIDS crisis that somebody said, stop wearing a condom?
Right.
I mean, it was more deadly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that was pushed, amongst other things, was if you are going to have sex with somebody that you don't know that hasn't been tested,
right,
wear a condom. The AIDS epidemic at one time was an epidemic that it's now not considered an epidemic. It's still a disease that we want to fight and cure and all those kind of things. But you don't hear it constantly be talked about like it used to be. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're asking about this? Like, next year at this time, somebody will say, well, how come you ain't wearing a mask? Will it be that, well, ain't nobody wearing a mask? Oh, yeah, they was wearing a mask down in Massachusetts at this place up in Massachusetts. They was wearing it there, but you know what I mean? Like, it's the same virus.
It's the same virus. I mean, it's the same virus.
You still don't want to get it.
It's not going away, and you don't want to get it. So how do we proceed from here?
Yeah.
And every day we hear something new about what the virus is, or symptoms, or people not having symptoms, or different symptoms than we initially heard about. And I think it's scary. I think it's frightening, and I think people should do what they're comfortable with doing right now. Yeah. If it makes you comfortable to wear the mask, then wear the mask. I know I hear people say, well, you're wearing a mask for somebody else so that they don't get it. And I understand and appreciate that. Sometimes I wear a mask and sometimes I don't.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest. I mean, that's the way I handle it. And, if you want to wear a mask all day, every day, if you wanted to wear a mask sitting next to me right here, that would have been fine. And if you choose not to ever wear one, I'm fine with that as well.
What I decided to do was simply this, because this is where I come from. I believe, I told my wife and I told my daughter about last time she was here. We always wear it when our daughter's around. She has a lung situation.
Right.
She would be at risk. So the last thing we want to do is give it to her.
Exactly.
Like, the last thing I want to do is give it to you, anybody that they know they got it from me. But when I told them this last time, we are all going to get it or not. No different than the flu. Some people are going to get it, some people are not.
To varying degrees.
So what I've decided to do was work on my immune system.
Yeah.
What I've decided to do is say, when I get this, am I going to be able to fight it off? Because what I think should be in every day that we should hear, instead of seeing the president and they keep telling us what's going to happen, we should hear every single day about 10 to 15 people who had it and what it was like while they had it. Mm-hmm. And if they did come out, how they came out of it. Were they at home? Were they in the hospital? What was their preconditions? Those who died, what was their that's what we should be concentrating on. So then you can figure out what you fit. So that if you're somebody who has certain conditions, and this person didn't wear a mask and didn't wear gloves and they went around something, and that you have the same condition they have, you might think, I'm putting this on because the last person who had a constant every year get bronchitis, they had some scarring on their lungs and this tore it up. So now that helps you decide what you're going to do. If this person was very healthy and didn't do this and they did do that and did this, and they still had this progressive and nasty thing, it'll let people know who think they're healthy, don't take this thing serious. But now I think everything is still, nobody knows nothing. Like, I wouldn't even know if I got it. I think I had it already, by the way.
I think January. I had it too.
Yeah, I think I had
at
it
the end
of
February.
When it was a hoax, I had that hoax.
Right.
Democratic hoax. But when I think I had it, and it was the worst I'd ever felt, especially for a 2 or 3 day period. The rest of it on either end of it felt like a flu, a bad cold, a nasal infection, a breathing infection, what have you.
I think I had it at the end of February. A lot of the guys that I work with, we were all sick in quick succession.
Yes.
And we were all very sick.
Yes.
The only time I remember being that sick or actually sicker was when I had the flu in 2005, the actual flu.
Now, did you go to hospital with this one?
No.
Okay.
I went to the doctor and all they kept saying was you have some virus, but we don't know what it is.
Okay.
A couple days of fever, really bad fever. I didn't get off my couch. I was down for at least a week, I think, on that couch.
Okay.
And my oldest son actually did have it.
Okay.
He lives in New Jersey, so there are people on top of people in the community that he lives in. They have more cases in his county than we have in the entire state of Ohio.
And how's he doing now?
Well, but he had a lot more trouble breathing than I did. I had some trouble, but I can remember having conversations with him on the phone now that he's on the other side of it, and him having trouble breathing. Right? So he was pretty sick from it, and that lasted a while. So it affected him a little harsher.
Do you know, or did he say where he was on that scale of every single time I leave out, I wash my hands, I put gloves on, and I have the scale too? I'm just not that worried about it.
We didn't talk about it a lot because I thought it was not odd that he got it because of where he lives, but he works from home, so he doesn't leave the house as much.
Okay.
And so I thought, wow, like that's significant that you got it. However, there are so many people in Newark, New Jersey, so there are so many people there that I'm not surprised that you went out and probably went to the grocery store and contracted it.
Good deal.
But yeah, it's
okay. Well, that's our COVID. I wanted to cover that because that's what's the happening thing right now, and what I had wanted to get into that we didn't, but we wanted to try. Hopefully, you'll come back again and we'll discuss it. Actually, I'm going to try to do a women's panel discussion with 3, 4, 5 women and talk about some issues. But one of the things I did want to talk with you about, if maybe next time I get you when this breaks through. Miss Patterson said she would get with us. I want to discuss that, the North End Field and the, what was it called? The Miracle Field that they want to build. What I want to like to do the panel with is that use that as an object lesson, so to speak, because it's happening now. Somebody's trying to do that. But I think that there's a bigger picture. That's just one of the things that's happened to the North End Field. Mm-hmm. I'd like to know, why is it happening? Who all feels something about it? If it was talking about Jim Woods Field, and it was me wanting to start a racquetball club and build something on that park in the middle of the baseball field, and I could tell you how everybody would benefit of it, would the people in that district think that I should just be able to come in and build something that I want to build because I think it's, without them all having any input? You know what I mean? That's how I want to look at it, because there's some people who look at it like that. This isn't the first time decisions have been made about that field. What might not have been you, it might have been somebody else. The argument is, nothing ever happens with that field. Vagrants start to get there.
I've heard that.
There was times where drugs and alcohol was real bad there one time. There's nothing there. Nobody does anything there anymore. And all those type of things, which are great points.
Heard it.
Why not put $2 million, $1 million, $3 million into that and make it better? And no, it may not be a softball field anymore, but it can be. A lot of other things can be done. We can do something new. We don't have to always have it be the same thing. There's a lot of great ideas. What I had wanted to do was, if we really care, and that's the problem, nobody really cares. You're 10 or 15 people come with ideas and views, and if you ask somebody who don't even know what's going on, they'll give you their view, but nobody really cares. And so, and that's the issue. I think that's really the issue that people need to understand. But how could they care? Sometimes people care if the money's already there, if the organization's already there, if it's already been built, meaning the business plan or the idea's already been built, like that person came with the Miracle Field. If you had another idea and you knew that all these 3 things would go to fruition, which one would that community pick?
Right.
But when one comes and looks like there's no other options, then it looks that way. So you said you'll come back. I got a commitment from you. I do want to thank you for your time. Those of you watching, again, hit that subscribe button before you get off of this channel. Hit that subscribe button, then hit the bell. When the drop down box opens up, hit all so you get all the videos as soon as they're uploaded. Hit the share button and hit the like button if you like what you heard. We're out with Miss Hines. We want to thank her, and the only thing I want to leave you with is peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.